Jesus existed. Historians say yes. What do you think? Here's my take on it. Several secular historians, that is non-Christians, from ancient times wrote about or referenced Jesus Christ, providing non-Christian sources that support the historical existence of Jesus. These historians did not write about a religious perspective, but often acknowledged him in the context of broader historical or political events of their times. Here are a few of the most well-known sources. Flavius Josephus, 37 to 100 AD, born 7 years after the death of Jesus, about 30 AD. As a young man, Josephus would certainly have had the opportunity to meet or even interview disciples, neighbors, religious or government officials who knew Jesus. This adds strong, non-biased credibility to his accounts. Josephus was a Jewish historian who wrote extensively about Jewish history. He mentioned Jesus in his works, particularly in the Antiquities of the Jews. Excerpt. At this time, there was a wise man who was called Jesus. His conduct was good, and he was known to be virtuous. And many people among the Jews and the other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die. But those who had become his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them 3 days after his crucifixion and that he was alive. Antiquities of the Jews, Book 18, Chapter 3. Tacitus, 56 to 120 AD. Tacitus was a Roman historian who referred to the execution of Jesus in the context of discussing the persecution of Christians by the Emperor Nero. Excerpt. Christus, from whom the name Christians had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilatus. Annals 1544. Pliny the Younger, 61 to 113 AD. Pliny was a Roman governor and writer. He referred to Christians and their worship of Christ in a letter to the Emperor Trajan. Excerpt. They were in the habit of meeting on a certain fixed day before it was light, when they sang in alternate verses a hymn to Christ as to a God, and bound themselves by a solemn oath not to any wicked deeds. Pliny's Letters 10.96. Suetonius, 69 to 122 AD. Suetonius was another Roman historian who mentioned Christus, a variant spelling of Christus, in the context of unrest among Jews in Rome. Excerpt. Since the Jews constantly made disturbances in the instigation of Christus, he, the Roman Claudius, expelled them from Rome. The Life of Claudius, 25.4. Lucian of Samosata, 125 to 180 AD. Lucian was a Greek satirist who mocked the Christians, but in doing so, acknowledged their worship of Jesus. Excerpt. The Christians, you know, worship a man to this day, the distinguished personage who introduced their novel rites and was crucified on that account. These secular sources give historical references to Jesus Christ, often in a context that recognizes his execution and the early movement without necessarily endorsing Christians' beliefs.